Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Guns of Navarone, RMP, Troy Shuka, Bosnail, Justin Duso, Joseph Pizarro, Samson, Maris, Hairy Blade, Mobile Mac 777, Neo the One, Lost Cat FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Mike, Muted, Dick Earth Skeptic, NA Literalist, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Rob H, Nathan Thompson, The Real Gabster, Windrider, Liam Nedrick, Erwin Jennisons, Abraham Mohammed, Dave Rakia Gafford, Naibai, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic936, Life is Short, Fireball X, Texas Mike, Edwin Johnson, Kirsten Smith, Alexander Main, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. I'm going to hand over to both Google and Discord panels so you can enjoy whoever is in there and their conversation while I set up for today's live show.
Yeah, which just seemed deep.
What were we talking about again?
We were going through the housekeeping questions and we were just taking our sweet time about it, and there was just a lot of good content on each question.
Yeah, I do remember actually. Yeah, it was.
Well, you got kids, so it's easy to forget when you have kids to take care of afterwards.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, I was just going over some of my slides for my presentation. It seems to take forever to put out, but it's amazing how they claim to have Earth curvature here at ground level, but then the higher they go, they can't see it.
Yeah, what a silly assertion. It's just being blinkered to the reality of the argument and how it expands out into other arguments you might make about the horizon being visible and physical higher up. It's like, oh God, don't you get it? Obviously not.
If someone smashed a huge round object right in front of my eyes, it's hard to tell what it is. It could be vertically upright, it could be anything, but I definitely wouldn't know what it was until I backed away from it. Oh, it's a round object. It's a ball. And they got it all backward. Oh, the higher you go, you can't see it, but the closer you are, you know what it is. What?
Yeah, they're always going to need a physical horizon. They never got one anymore. That's basically it, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, they've discounted perspective, so that's out of the realm of a possibility for them. But that's real life.
Yep.
Yeah, it's good. It's good when they come here and they just hit a brick wall and they have to say silly things. That's the best part of the debate.
Their best magic trick has died. So back in the early debates, their very best globe attack, or arguments in defense of the globe. Obviously, they've got to start by begging the question: we're on a sphere, right? Well, the globe calculator gives them that. Then they've got to compare reality to their model. Well, their globe calculator compares photographs to the mathematics of geometry. So it's a really useful tool, a really useful trick to null the globe denier into a sense where arguing about how much or how little Earth curve physical obstruction at the horizon we're seeing in a picture means that every time you enter into that discussion as a flat earther, you've lost as soon as you start the conversation. Because the conversation starts with, if the Earth is a sphere, so begging the question, then we'll observe this amount of obstruction at the horizon, because it's a physical Earth curve edge, because we've already just assumed it. And then you argue all day about how much should or shouldn't be blocked at the horizon in their maths. Like, why are we comparing reality to geometry when your geometry has an assumed physical sphere edge horizon which doesn't exist in reality? Why would the pictures ever be comparable? So when you say, oh, well, they've ignored perspective, yes, they have, but they've taken perspective, which is a real-world optical effect, and turned it into Earth curve physical obstruction at the horizon. That's what the mathematics did, and that was their best tool. That's why all the advice for flat earthers is your argument with a flat earther should, as a globe earther, start at the horizon. Because that's what it's all about, right? Turning the horizon into Earth curve.
Yeah.
Well, we've debunked it.
Yeah, like you said, it was, until we drilled down to the nitty-gritty of each word and what it means and how they constructed the fakery.
2014, 2015, it started off with the argument, where's the curvature? Right? Where's what curvature?
Yeah,
what is curvature? Well, curvature is the physical reification of a model at the horizon, a non-physical location, as a physical sphere edge. That's what the curve of the Earth is, not where is it, because it doesn't exist anywhere beyond the maths. So why are we all looking out with a hand over the top of our brow looking for this curve? So what, they can show it us in comparative pictures with Earth curve maths and say, here's your Earth curve, like Tim Osmond did. This is the horizon. This is their Earth curve. Well, that is where they must start, and they need a physical geometric sphere edge to do it, and we've debunked it with the black swan. Ergo, they don't have any decent arguments for the globe anymore. None. They don't have any.
Definitely. Well, when they see perspective, which is really, how can I put it? I'll just say it. They call perspective Earth curve.
Yeah. They call the vanishing point the horizon and not actual non-physical location. They call that physical Earth curve edge. And then they calculate how much the horizon, a non-physical location, blocks boats and buildings into the distance with feet and inches measurements that don't change with distance. So it's just a hijacking of perspective.
That's all it is. And on the secondary point, water doesn't curve, and no one could show me water curving. And so there's your second point saying, wait a minute, and if it's curved, then that means the water is curved. Correct. And then that brings in their pseudoscience statement of gravity, which they can't, it's just the same way that they can't prove curve, they can't prove gravity.
Oh, this is what I've got on screen now, isn't it? The word horizon marked with an X inside profile. So you are eye/camera on the left-hand side of the image. Well, you don't get to see the side of your own head in a picture. They turn the whole picture side on and make a line that runs the length of the picture, if you've got a horizon in it, from left to right, into a single X, marks the spot point of physicality obscuring your thing in the distance. And then it gives you the word hidden. Well, hidden meaning behind the horizon. Well, if it's hidden behind the horizon, then it's a physical Earth curve obstruction horizon, physical Earth curve edge for boats to fall over. Well, we don't have that in reality. The horizon's not marked with an X labelled horizon. It would be if we were on a ball, like this example. That's a physical sphere edge. And that's what Earth would have if we had a sphere edge. It doesn't mean there wouldn't be a limit of view behind it. It'd be like a hill. A hill in the foreground, Earth curve edge, physical and blocking things. Well, if that's the case, then we've got a physical hill between us and whatever we're blocking as per the depiction in side view, even though we don't see the side of our own heads. So they've merely taken perspective and called what would be a hill in the foreground, Earth curve edge, blocking your view, and called the horizon that. And it isn't. The horizon's non-physical. It's not the edge of a hill blocking your view. That's not what the horizon is.
Elijah.
Hey, Elijah.
Have you heard the 3-point that Miggy created that he brings every new glober that comes to the server, to the 24/7 server? What have you heard what are they? I think Elijah said good morning.
Go ahead.
So the 3 points that he brings them it's pretty much what we always speak about. versus the curvature of the Earth. Where has it ever been measured? Right, either now in days or in latter times or times before. The second one is axial rotation, and the third is the vacuum of space, medium that you could travel to next to pressure. And by the end of the whole conversation, they've pretty much figured out that everything they know is a belief. They don't actually have any information for it, which they could get past that point, where and every time they try to go back with this, and this, well, you already told me it was a belief that you have no actual information for it, and pretty much breaks them down completely, with all these 3 points.
Yeah, top three. Can't have gas pressure without
Yeah.
a container, therefore the sky is not a vacuum, outer space is fake. Any therefore claimed to be pictures of Earth as a sphere from space are automatically fake. That throws all of those claim proofsies out the window. Then you've got axial rotation. Well, they claim we've got axial rotation and Coriolis deviation as a result. That would be Earth turning underneath at 15 degrees an hour. And things would drift away from you at 1,000 miles an hour on the equator. You'd notice. We don't, because there isn't. Earth isn't spinning. And then last but by no means least, if the Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles, then every distance to horizon can be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. And like the image on screen now from National Geographic, the horizon's beyond the geometric capabilities of physical obstruction of a sphere. This is a black swan. It's beyond the physical parameters at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. Now, by coincidence, they've claimed that Earth curve is getting in the way of this flag, and yet the horizon is behind it. Black swan. So there's no Earth curve. The horizon isn't a physical location to block boats and buildings with values in feet and inches or meters that don't change with distance. There is no sky vacuum to take little pictures of paintings of Earth. And you can't have gas pressure without a container, i.e. sky's not a vacuum. And what was the last one? We haven't got any axial rotation. No axial rotation, no sky vacuum, no Earth curve. Black swan, Coriolis effect, and the sky vacuum. Second law of thermodynamics. Top three.
Yeah, top three, and which then they gather. Yeah, I mean, pretty much all they have is a belief, and completely just breaks them. Completely breaks them. They either go to a cognitus, just going spiraling out, or just kind of like, okay, show me something. What do you have? Pretty much that's what their next thing is. We go with Black Swan. Gas pressure without thermodynamics, the second law of thermodynamics, and so on and so forth.
The only trouble with the black swan is a lot of them have limited intelligence or limited capacity to understand it, or they choose not to, one of those three, and because of which they'll tacitly acknowledge the argument, or in some instances repeat it back verbatim, and then acknowledge the logic behind it. As an example, therefore you would have debunked the radius, based on non-physicality of the horizon to derive a radius value from. Well, later you can basically ignore that and say, look at my picture of a physical horizon. Now that fits into the first category you described, L. Broccoli. It's cognitive dissonance, holding two positions simultaneously. So on the one hand, accepting that you don't have a physical geometric horizon to the point where you acknowledge the logic that therefore you can't derive a radius value if it's non-physical, only to go on to say, look at my physical picture of a physical sphere edge horizon. Isn't it beautiful? That's cognitive dissonance, right?
Exactly.
That's our fault, really. We bamboozle them.
Well, they come out with a Muppet vision to try to bamboozle everybody to the biggest trick of all, the way that no one ever observes their reality. Then they put lines and X's, and H means this, and 14 different horizons when there's only one. And you just look at that picture and say, well, that came from a high educational where a lot of people are smarter than me. So that must be the way it is. And then when we get a hold of them and say, do you ever see Earth this way? No. And they start breaking the spell. I mean, this is what's so good about the words and identifying, as semantics, they always say, well, that's just semantics. Exactly. That's how we're going to break the spell. We're going to define each word.
Hey, Brian.
Hey, everybody. How are
Good to have
things
you.
with
Hey, Brian.
I'm making a bit of noise here, so I'll probably be on mute for the start of the show.
No worries.
How are you all today?
Very well. No
Oh, that's
complaints.
good.
Doing well on my plane.
Hold on, I got some complaints.
All right.
I got
here we
some
go.
complaints. I
Fire
got a
away.
nice car sitting in front of my house that I can't drive. I gotta take a cab to a train, to a bus, to a train, to a bus. Cost me over $100 to make $250 because of COVID. I got a complaint.
Well, don't
I
complain
hear
to
you,
me.
brother. Say it like it is.
No, but the bad part is I don't know when I'm gonna get this freaking thing registered. Everything's closed.
Okay, then.
That's what-
Well, that's not really anything we can help with, I'm
So
afraid.
All is not lost. Get yourself an e-bike or maybe rent one during this time and make super bank on
Yeah,
deliveries.
I'll be pedaling from upstate New York. Yeah, I'll die halfway through.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Oh man.
Yeah, just drive it unregistered and say it's COVID. Simple.
Yeah, well, my luck, I lost a car that way already. I ain't letting him do it again.
Yeah, New York is horrible for that. You should do what Elijah does, just ride a bike.
He's got to move to do that.
See if you can rent one of the old Chase spaces right in the middle of New York for next to nothing. Now they're all closed down. Why is it the case, or why was it the case that you'd had Chase banks like on every other corner in New York? What's that all about? Why do you need so many banks, and why do you need so many of the same?
It was the same thing with the Starbucks when they first came out. I didn't even
Starbucks
know
I
what
can
they
get.
were.
I can understand the logic behind a lot of people wanting coffee, but I can't understand a lot of people wanting more than one Chase within 2 blocks. That doesn't make sense. Well, it can't have made any sense because half of them are closed now. So clearly they weren't needed. Watching Lewis Rossman moaning about it because he was saying that when you get a circumstance prior to COVID where everyone's buying up this property like Chase Bank, that pushes the real estate price up because they'll pay whatever, right? And they'll just keep paying it. But then when they all fold or they all move out, obviously the landlord still wants the same amount of money and is under the false impression that that's what his property's worth. So you just get all of these really nice empty banks sat dormant because they can't find a single soul to actually rent them at the property value that they were getting when they had a bank renting it. So that artificially maintains this false idea that the New York property values are higher than they actually are, or the rental values, or the lease values, or whichever. And that can only sustain itself with nobody actually pumping any money into it for a certain amount of time, right? That will collapse eventually if everyone's like, well, it's just too expensive, I'm not going to rent, and then somebody moves out and then they've got that rental income not coming in anymore. Well, that's only got to sustain itself for what, 6 months to a year, and all the landlords are all screwed then, right? They'll all start running out of money. What are they going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting times.
These are interesting times, that's for sure.
Right. But the bigger picture Neil can't get his car registered.
That's all that's important right now to that man.
Mumble mumble. Who was that?
And my wife does holiday cookies, and she's got a bunch of orders. She took them, and I don't even know how I'm going to get them there.
Oh no, not the cookies.
Yeah,
I mean,
the
this
cookies. I'll take some pictures and put them on there.
front page news,
They're
man.
outstanding. Rainbow cookies, pinoles, arugula. They're really nice ones, and they're delicious.
Have you contacted Channel 7 about this?
Neil, why don't you just rent the car for the money you're spending? Get to work. You can
I
rent
might
the car.
do it. Well, because I just come back from a rental all last week for my father-in-law's funeral. But I might do that.
Good morning, peeps.
Hello.
Good morning.
You know what it is? It cost me over $800 just for like 9 days. That's insanity.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by somebody trying to join right in the middle of my intro. We are joined by Sleeping Warrior, Neil, Elijah, Chocolate, Brian's Logic, 10th Man, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome one and all.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hello, everybody.
Yo, yo.
Good
Good
afternoon.
morning from a windy New York.
That's just what I need to hear. Lots of windy noise through your mic. No, good to have you all. Welcome. Weekend is long behind us. The excellent session of housekeeping only just happened yesterday, but hopefully we can keep that spirit going throughout the rest of this show. Hello, Discord. Let's see if we can get a bit of life out of you today. Wasn't much from you yesterday.
Hey, how you doing?
Morning, guys.
Good morning. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
Not from Hacienda Heights.
Might have heard something about it.
You've heard of a man who knows a dog, right?
Right, but when you actually trace it back to the person, they will just say, no, we never claimed a geometric horizon. So,
Yeah, even when they're holding up a picture that says this is Earth curved with pictures of the horizon, they'll say, we don't claim that. When you point out that they haven't got a physical horizon, yeah. Very amusing.
Yeah, I don't
can
care
teach
what
children.
they say. No distance to the horizon measurements. None of those, even though they claim they have distance to the horizon formulas. You guys,
What we
the
could do
audience,
is
can Google that.
we could just teach it all the children, and unless they go to physics at undergrad level at university, they'll never find out that the edge that we perceive, the horizon, isn't actually a physical edge. They'll all believe it, but we'll just teach it to them anyway, even though it's false.
That's exactly what does happen. Were you saying that in irony? Because that's precisely the circumstance that befalls us.
But then they'll tell us like they were telling us 3 years ago. You guys make up perspective. That's what they were telling us like 3-4 years ago, right? You flat earthers made up perspective, right? All of a sudden this year it's like, oh shit, it's perspective, guys.
Perspective's a dirty word if you're a blurther.
A glurfer? A glurfer?
Yeah, blurther, yeah.
Sorry, a glurfer, as in globe earther, is now glurfer. I like it a lot.
Yeah, blurther, yeah.
I love it. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety? Are we spinning? Any evidence thereof?
Now, there's two whirlpools in the sky, Nathan, but if we make them conceptualize that we're on a spinning ball, they'll perceive those two whirlpools in the sky as axial rotation points, even though we never present any evidence of axial rotation. We can just let them think it in a model.
Oh, right, so if I assume travelling south leaves me antipodal on a ball by first assumption, then that's proof that I'm antipodal on a ball when I look at things in the sky that are above me in both instances. I see. Very clever.
We'll not tell them that if they don't assume that, then it's flat.
I see. So to assume that those stars above you, and always above you, are actually below you, you just have to first assume that when you travel south that you're actually travelling to the bottom of a ball, even though there's no evidence or demonstrable facts that prove that on the way.
Yes, you must assume that, Nathan, otherwise it's not a ball, is it?
I see. That's why they always seem to start their conversations with, well, if the Earth's a ball, blah, 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 therefore the Earth's a ball.
We should start all conversations with, if the Earth's flat.
But the Earth is obviously and observably flat, so during my example of travelling south, nothing will indicate that you're doing anything other than travelling across a plane. And if you were flying across it, that's how they'd treat it. And if you're surveying it, that's how it's treated. So it's flat. It's not like that's an assumption. That's the obvious and observable nature of the reality that faces you.
If you imagine that you're going round a ball, Nathan, then it becomes a ball.
No, it doesn't. I've done it. I've travelled all over the world. It's definitely not presenting itself in any way, shape, or form as ball-like.
What he's telling you is it's not a ball, but you can think of it like a ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when I was thinking of it as a ball and travelling over its surface, nothing presented itself as ball-like. It was still obviously and observably flat, even though I literally did think I was on a ball. I actually did think that, and it still didn't present itself in any way, shape, or form as ball-like. At all.
Whoa, you're getting way too logical. Calm down.
It's not
even logic.
A dog shit sandwich.
It's just not logic, other than you could say, is it modus ponens? If A, then B, A, therefore B. If it looks flat, it's flat. It looks flat, therefore it's flat. You know, do you know what do you want me to say? It's not logic, it's just like, look how flat it is.
It makes too much sense. It can't work. It's too simple. It has to be all complicated and convoluted.
Well, it can be. If you want to believe you're on a ball, you can make it as complicated as you like, but you'll never see any indication that it's in any way actually ball-shaped. The ground beneath your feet's always flat, obviously and observably so.
Yeah, it's flat. Yeah.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
We can calculate it.
Oh, can you?
Yeah, we'll just assume that the sun's in its physical position and assume that we know its size based on an assumption that Venus is the same size as Earth, and then assume that Earth's a sphere, and we'll make lots of assumptions, calculations, and logically come to the conclusion that based on those assumptions and calculations, the actual position of the sun that's apparent is therefore 93 million miles away.
Okay, so you're going to calculate the distance to the reification of the assumption it's a physical object.
Yes.
Yeah, because it takes 8 minutes or so. Because it takes 8 minutes or so for the light from the sun to get to us, that makes it an apparent position for the sun, which will then calculate its angular size for an apparent position of the sun, and then apply a load of assumptions, and then we know how far away it is. It seems perfectly acceptable to me.
How did you figure out where Venus?
Don't you need the actual size to calculate the angular size or something?
Yeah, you'd need the actual size to triangulate it. Yes, you would. You'd need the actual size. You can't measure something with non-physicality. You know, if it's only apparent, that would be not actual. Then it's not tangible. How are you going to measure something intangible? It's ludicrous. From both sides of the argument, I might add. Flat Earth and Globe Earth, who claim they can measure something that's intangible.
Yeah, it's just as ridiculous when I hear Flat Earthers saying it's 3,000 and 4,000 miles up. It's like, really?
Yeah, show me your tape measure that got you that distance. Oh, I triangulated it. What, you triangulated something that moves as you move? Wow, that's useful. Body's feeding back. Just leave sleeping warrior. You turn your speakers down. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Doesn't me at all. Wash your mouth out.
Might have been Al Broccoli.
Any scientific evidence of gravity? No, we'll just assume that it's always there, right? We'll never demonstrate that it is there. We'll just assume that it's there, like you assume that the skies are vortices.
What is there?
Gravity.
We'll just assume it.
Yeah, but what is it? What is it that you are assuming is going to be there?
Let him define it. Hold on. Let him define it. Go ahead, sleeping warrior.
We don't know. Next question.
No, we do. It's the uneven distribution of mass in a model causing the bending of space-time. That's what it is, Arwin.
Nathan, I was citing Neil deGrasse Tyson.
The greatest gravity quote ever. Go ahead, Sleeper Warrior. What's gravity, Sleeper Warrior?
Oh, there's quite a few definitions that I like. I like the one that's fresh out of Einstein's mouth himself. He says that gravity is, quote, the effect of the curvature of space-time caused by the uneven distribution of mass, end of quote. However, we all know that mass has no direction or magnitude, so it has no vector. So we don't quite understand how it causes the distortion of space-time, but that's what it's defined as. But ballers just don't like it.
Well, I have something to say on that. Oh, sorry, 1 second. Einstein never defined what he meant by effect or by mass. Never.
Well, thankfully, we don't need Einstein to define effect. We know what the effect means.
1 second. Everybody after him has decided what he meant by effect and by mass. That's very important.
Brian, you're a bit quiet, mate. Go on, Elijah, because you're causing feedback. Go ahead.
In layman's terms, there's only two ways to think about it. Either it's the mass of an object that is attracting things, or it's the mass of an object that's causing a bending or warping of space-time to attract things together. But either way, it's a sphere.
Well, it's classified as the latter, but I rumpus the quote from Neil deGrasse Tyson, Anthony.
Sorry, the quote by Neil deGrasse Tyson was, we don't know. Next question.
That's the best.
What's gravity, Mr. deGrasse Tyson? Quote, we don't know. Next question, end quote. Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
When did he say that?
I remember him saying it. He did it in an interview. It's on YouTube.
Was a while ago. Yeah, he said that clearly.
In a proper formal interview too.
Yeah, it was to that girl, wasn't it?
I don't know if it was a girl. I thought it was a guy. Maybe it was a guy. Maybe it doesn't matter.
He said it.
But if they don't know what it is, then how do they know it's there?
They don't. That was Arwin's point. Yeah, good point, Arwin. I lost track there. Say that again, Arwin.
Well, if they don't know what it is, then how do they know it's there?
They don't.
But it has to be there. It's there. They know it's there because it has to be there.
In their model. Has to be there in their model. Well, in reality, not. Arwin's talking about physics and physical reality, right, Arwin?
I like to think so, yeah.
So not has to be there in a model. Who cares? In reality, we don't see it. It's not in existence. You can't bend time.
Actually, it will say Radio Talk from What is Gravity Star Talk from Star Talk radio show. And the lady asked her, what is gravity? And she said, I have no idea. Next question.
That's kind of funny.
Just pulled it.
In a later interview, when I believe he was talking to Joe Rogan, he was telling him but we know what gravity is because we are able to land rovers in the middle of a crater on Mars.
Yep.
So
no, they don't.
He went from we don't know next question to this thing that we've already done, we know what it is because we've done this thing.
well, maybe he just temporarily forgot.
Didn't he follow up not knowing what it is with we know what it does?
Yes.
Nobody defines it better.
Yeah, but that's wrong, because does implies it's doing some sort of work, physicality, right? If it does something, then you can see it doing it. Well, no, you can't see the uneven distribution of mass bending a conceptual medium of space-time. That cannot do anything. So, no, it doesn't do anything. It might be described as doing something in your model, but in reality, back to Arwin's point, if you can't see it, then it's not an effect. Well, they claim it's an effect, and it only exists in their model.
Well,
but you can see the effect they claim.
Not even the effect. It's like they don't know what it is. So if you don't know what it is, then how do you know it's there? That's like a fundamental logic question.
Yeah, and furthermore, how can you attribute cause to it? I don't know what it is, but I know what causes it and what it does. Well, if you don't know what it is, and you can't see it, and you can't qualify it, and it hasn't got any physicality, how can you A, know what it is, and B, know what caused it, if you don't even know what it is you're looking at? So gravity is just a complete load of nonsense.
But the effects of gravity are all around us. When you drop your phone, it falls to the floor. So there is the observed effect. All you have to do is believe that is because of something that you've never seen manipulated. You can't find. Nobody else can find. Nobody knows what it is. But the effect is there.
Hold on, I just dropped my phone, which was fortunately and coincidentally tied to a helium balloon, and it didn't go down, it went up.
Well, that must be also gravity as well.
That's also gravity. What, when it went up? Okay.
That's just details.
Hold on, my kettle's just boiled. Oh, what's all that steam doing on the ceiling? What's going on?
Also gravity.
Also gravity, my bad. The gas went up, down, go boom, boom. To the ceiling. Go boom, boom. Okay, I'm clear. We're all done. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
No.
Or globebusters.
I guess that's an answer right there. Just complete silence.
Any globers in Discord? Have any viable hypothesis? If any of this crap? Alrighty then.
No, clearly
Tumbleweeds.
not. Tumbleweeds. Any evidence of the R value, Earth radius?
Black Swan.
Quick correction for Godzilla37 from the Super Chat. I'm going back to believing in the globe. Ignorance is so blissful. Yeah, unfortunately, like Cypher in The Matrix, once you've taken the red pill, you can't untake it. So it's not like you can just forget that the whole thing's based on presupposition and philosophical models. You can't just forget that, Gord. Sorry, but thank you for the super chat. Really do appreciate it.
Well,
you can only...
I disagree, Nathan. You can forget.
Unless he makes a deal with an agent. Unless he makes a deal with an agent to be placed back into the Matrix and have his mind swiped.
We don't know if that's even possible. That didn't happen. So he sat in the Matrix making the deal with the agent and said, no, he didn't actually, he said it to Trinity, why, oh why didn't I take the blue pill? So you can sit and contemplate the alternative choice you didn't make, but you can't turn back time. So once you find out, this is the problem that I think a lot of our competition, the people on the globe side, have. Once you take the pill, you can't untake it, right? Now, they've also taken the pill. Now, it doesn't matter that they don't agree with what they now see. You know, you can use the They Live sunglasses as the same sort of analogy. Once you've put the glasses on, you go, oh my God, it's all lies. You quickly take them off again. But does that mean that you suddenly forget? No, of course not. Right? The black guy fighting with Roddy Piper, right? They're on the floor and he forces the glasses onto the big, is he bald? The big black bald guy? And the guy suddenly sees and he can't believe his eyes. Now, from that moment on, Roddy Piper knows that the second he forces the guy to see through those glasses, he's got two choices. He can live in cognitive dissonance, deny what he's seen, and that's what our opponents do. You know, I've referenced this so many times, but through projection, conspiracy cats described the unbelievable pain that you would have to feel if you were to realise that the earth was flat and you'd been lied to, all the other things that you would have to contemplate. Now, little did he realise that he's actually describing his own feelings and emotions towards the situation while he simultaneously lives in the painful nature of cognitive dissonance, holding two positions as being true at the same time. And they can't possibly be. We're not on a sphere. So they come here to affirm their bias, but they've already taken the pill. So all they can really sit and do around is go, I wish I'd never come across this flat earth information, because then I would be blue pill total ignorance like most of the rest of the Western world that they see around them, who don't care and still think they live on a sphere like they want to. They want to still believe, but they know they can't.
Well, I know someone who can get them out of it and get them back to their global reality.
Now, the keymaker dies as well. Oh, sorry, I'm ruining your point with a joke. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brian.
I'll say something after your joke then. No,
I was just going to say the keymaker also died, so you can't pin any hopes on that. I was going to shout out a super chat, which was the main reason for my interrupting you. Shout out again to Godzilla. He says, with the use of a large hammer, I can. What, to the skull? Yes, I assume that's what you're implying, Godzilla. Well, you knock yourself out. Boom. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, no, all he has to do is contact Jose Gonzalez. He knows how to forget about flat Earth. Just contact Jose. He knows. He has the contacts. He's able to get. He got himself out of it. He got back to his global reality. Just contact Jose.
He's just running around like Cypher's, just still mad, stuck in the real world. Clown.
No, but you can stay out of it by making sure you don't get confronted with the information that makes you think about why it's a lie again. But like most ballers, you constantly come back every day to spout out, it's all fake, yet that doesn't actually work. You'd have to move on with your life and then just forget about it slowly.
Yeah, but you won't.
But do you really want to? That's the bigger question, you know? Do they really want to inside?
I think you can suppress it, but that's also mentally dangerous. It's no different to when people are like, oh, I don't know, somebody's talking about some woman and their daddy issues and how they shouldn't suppress those emotions because it will leave them damaged later on in life, blah, 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 blah. This is no different. Right? Suppression of your globe issues isn't going to help you. It's going to make matters worse for these. So yeah, you can go away like Arwin suggests. You can take his advice and eventually you might just about forget about it. Nah. Suppressing these what would we call them? New understandings. Now, you might be in denial of them, but they're still there, whether you like them or not. And that's why we face so much vitriol. It's all projection. That's how they're feeling. When they call us cult members, the same thing applies. It's just projection. Yeah, you're paying Fundies.
You can forget it for a very long time, you know? But yeah, if you're constantly hanging around on the internet, that doesn't exactly help.
They're looking for confirmation bias in the negative, so they want us to be proven wrong. Someone to come along with a silver bullet that actually proves they're on a sphere, because how could it not be? The Western world all thinks it, and I still think it, so how could you be the case? I've got to come along and find that magical silver bullet. They won't. Black Swan, baby. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
No.
Well, there's this little device called a seismograph, and from the seismograph we can interpret that P waves and S waves, beyond any doubt whatsoever, prove that we're on a sphere, because we wouldn't get them any other way.
Get what? Any
P
other way?
waves and S waves, the squiggles.
Yeah, but the squiggles are representative of things that they're scanning, are they not?
Oh, you just don't understand, Nathan.
Yeah,
Are they
but
not?
the readout of the squiggles with the P waves and S waves, when attempting to physically confirm whether the predictions were correct, never worked out. So it's a nice concept that you would be able to actually get that right at some point, but there's no proof that you can actually get that right as of this point. So it's not proof yet. It might be proof in the future if you were able to perfect it.
Any evidence you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
Somebody sent me a link yesterday to a video that was 12 months old, and it was a guy say, I think it was something like "respect your intellect" or similar, and he was describing how basically gas pressure can form in a vacuum without any other like mechanism other than just itself, its own existence. And basically, in short, his argument was that you get two gas molecules that get close to each other, and then they become statically attracted to each other, and then a third one comes to it, and then a fourth one comes to it, and it starts creating its own gravitational force. Literally, that's how he described it, and I was like, oh my god. It's brilliant.
Any more? Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without a container, given that a lot of people think the sky is a vacuum and that we've somehow developed and maintained gas pressure here without a container?
No, the only way you could ever even model it is by creating a inconsistent just so story, because every time you factually address the concept in any sort of fashion, it always turns out it's an absolute impossibility in every way conceivable. Only sloppy just so stories can make you temporarily believe it's a possibility.
Possibility to have gas pressure without a container? Yeah, it isn't a possibility. You're right. Any more for any more? If not, that concludes housekeeping.
Wow.
What's the wow? What was the wow?
It's just that it went pretty quick today. I mean, it's 2:25 and we've completed housekeeping, and that's the best arguments that I can think of that they come up with. No science, though.
Yeah, but beyond the housekeeping, if you a regular Fundy Globe head watching the show, you kind of hear white noise when the housekeeping questions come on. And then, after the fact, once you've ignored all of that, suppressed it, you can then do things like point to the picture of the horizon from a high altitude balloon and ask, well, how do you explain this, flat earthers? Not realising that little hesitation I put in for dramatic effect was them suddenly half contemplating that they don't have a physical geometric sphere edge for a horizon anymore. This thing on screen has no physicality. That line isn't physical. It's an apparent location, where in this instance, the clouds meet the sky. Well, neither of those two things have any physicality. So what's meeting what now? Well, nothing's meeting anything. It's a not actual location. It's non-physical. But yeah, you could put this line through a curve calculator and claim how much the clouds are blocking things in the distance. Right? No, it's non-physical on the ground too. The fact that you do have actual physical ground doesn't mean that the horizon represents a hill in the near foreground, Earth curve, blocking things in the distance. It's absolutely absurd. The horizon's not a physical location. Doesn't matter how high you go, it suddenly doesn't become physical. The black swan isn't overcome with altitude. It's absurd.
Yeah, there's the question: how do you explain my globe bias belief on your flat Earth? There's always some nonsense there. People are expecting you to explain that's purely based in a globe model.
Yeah, they've got a expansion from a philosophy, and that expansion has been explained and taught as a model. But then many, if not most, of the Western world has taken that as read, and reified it into existence. And from there, it doesn't require any real interjection from any powers that should not be. It's self-perpetuating. People will continue to make memes about globes and talk about how things operate globally. It's part of the language now. So it's self-fulfilling in terms of the indoctrination now. It's not the case that if you see a subliminal globe dropped into a South Park episode, they've put that there because they necessarily want to keep you indoctrinated with the idea of being on a sphere. It's just part of our general Western world. That's part of what we have, a globe belief. It's just ingrained. The problem is that I don't think it's been around long enough to be permanently ingrained, and there's a lot of us right now on this panel who say, well, there's no evidence of it. It's just a philosophy, it's just a model, and we don't live on models. So whether or not this globe idea actually takes root into the consciousness of people, I think is unlikely. The fact that it's been attempted by whoever or whenever to do exactly that, I think is just going to show its failings as time progresses, because it's so untenable as an idea. And absurd. The idea of people hanging off the bottom of something below me, with their sky below me, it's utterly ridiculous. How it's got this far, I don't know.
Every day I see it more and more, like new people will come into 24/7 Discord, and yeah, we get our fair trolls over there, and just the diehard staunch zealots, but more and more people just show up like, yeah, this is very interesting, and yeah, these things I'm being told don't make sense to me. I mean, people think this is something that's just, going to go away. It's not going away, guys. People are waking up to this nonsense, to this magical spinning water ball that has no empirical evidence. People are waking up to it.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
So,
Joey Rocha made a really interesting point a couple of days ago on one of his videos. He kept it short and sweet as well. Check it out. Joey Rocha's channel. He was pointing out that there's... I'll ask the question first. Have you all heard of, or are you aware of, something called the Streisand effect?
Yeah, that was to do with her trying to sell a house, wasn't it? And she wanted privacy, so she demanded certain pictures get removed. And what everybody then did was went and took the pictures that she couldn't get removed to make the problem even worse for her.
Pretty much. She just had somebody take pictures of the famous, and one of them was her house, and it got published online and had been downloaded. I'll have to be correct if I'm wrong, but I think it was 8 times it had been downloaded off this website, the image. So it's just a downloadable file of a picture of Barbara Streisand's house. And like I say, about 8 people got hold of it, but she took umbrage to it and sued and for its removal. Now, as a byproduct, it was downloaded millions of times and published, just countless times, because she tried to suppress it, and only because she tried to suppress it. Now, what is it? It's probably 18 months, maybe even 2 years since the American state senate, or whoever it was, literally sat in front of YouTube executives and said, what are you going to do to suppress this flat earth thing? And they went, we're going to stop recommending it and put a little note underneath saying earth isn't flat. And they went, okay, that'll do. Good enough suppression for us. And it was really off. They published it. They literally showed videography of them saying it, the questions and answers and what they were going to do. They published it and told us, this is what we're censoring. It's like, that is going to be subject to the Streisand effect then. And in recent times, I don't know if Joe Rocha has made the connection I'm now making, but it's like, yeah, you've got people telling us all the time about others who've come to, seemingly from nowhere, this subject. Well, if it's being suppressed, that's supposed to stop that happening, isn't it? Isn't that the point of censorship? Well, if more people are coming in and it's expanding out, clearly it's not been successful censorship. It's actually been subject to the Streisand effect. So, unlucky. On that note,
a lot of the people that'll come in are kids that are like high school kids that'll come in and say, but my friends are talking about this in school. All my friends are talking about this, or, my friend sent me this, the link for this server. They're all talking about it. And even though sometimes, they might come in like 3 or 4 trolls at a time, 1 or 2 of them might say, hey, this actually makes sense. So
exactly.
As far as the kids, like, it's getting to the kids, man. they're starting to wake up, which I think is a beautiful thing, man.
And the only thing
you know what?
I wanted to use, sorry, just to interrupt, I wanted to use it as a segue to thank my audience, because for the last 18 months, since that was made overtly obvious, I've encouraged my audience more so to share the show. I say it in chat, I say it during the beginning and the outro, etc., etc., etc. I'm constantly plugging the idea of sharing the show on Facebook and Twitter, because obviously, yeah, it's great to say, oh, well, actually, the Streisand effect, well, you know, on the flip side of that, no, we are actually being suppressed in some form or another. So without people sharing the show. But I think the reason for what is now being described by Joey Rocha with the Streisand effect is as a direct consequence of that one guy or girl that's gone, okay, I will, I'll stick it on Facebook. And they do. And that means that exposes it to their circle of friends and so on and so forth. Now, without it being part of the algorithm and part of the recommendations, how else am I growing? Well, I know that's the only way I'm growing. I know that's the only way the show's reaching people. It's thanks to you. I'm pointing right now at you, the audience, who shared the show. It's thanks to you. That's why we're discussing this right now. Because if you hadn't, if you'd have gone, I'm sure someone else will share it. Well, maybe not, because everyone else will take the same attitude. But they haven't. People have shared the show on Facebook and Twitter. I know they have. I can see it in my stats. I can see where people come from. So I know people are sharing the show. And without them, the show would be going nowhere. So I should be and am eternally grateful to the people who are actually watching. Because they're the ones who make the show possible, right? They're the ones that make it what it is. As much as I can thank my Patreons on every start of every show financially, obviously they're critical to me. But really, the overall audience and the fact they hit the share button is what makes the show grow. So yeah, big shout out to all of you who do actually hit the share button when I pester you. And my apologies to all who get annoyed because I constantly pester you to share the show. Like Streisand effect. Anybody want to take up the reins on that little subject matter?
I would just add that I think it's pretty significant. Sorry, man. Real quick, I think it's pretty significant that they have to talk about this in some type of congressional meeting. Like, it's that serious that you have to talk about suppressing this? Why is it that serious? I thought we were just a bunch of crazies just running around saying blah, blah, blah. But apparently that's not the case.
Big shout out to Flat Earth Data. This is just shared on Facebook, Twitter, and Parler. Also share on MySpace and Bebo. Go on, Brian.
MySpace.
Yeah, well, the thing about it is that when it first turned up 5 years ago, let's say 5-6 years ago, it was like shocking for a moment. Because there wasn't just like someone said it might be flat. They came out with a load of reasons why it is. And then it was kind of laughed at, and then it was attacked. But now it's like people have kind of gotten in, people hear it a lot more, they become more comfortable with it, and they're kind of going, well, it looks flat to me, you know what I mean? And some guy said to his wife's going, no, I don't know about that. And then, look, eventually she says to herself, well, I didn't see any curve on that flight from Denver to wherever. You know, so bit by bit, it's just like, you can try and, why are they trying to hold it back? What's the big deal? If it's not flat, why are you worried about it? And it's like, you know, ordinary people who are at home on YouTube, you know, and that are like they are eventually just kind of becoming more comfortable with the idea. So it's like people just have to be comfortable with it, just accepting it.
Well, that's something I've suspected, that, you know, this is a soft release. In other words, the pushback is only so it doesn't grow too quickly. In other words, people are going to find out eventually. They already have, and the numbers are growing. Therefore, you can't let the floodgates open, because suddenly that will cause a lot of cognitive dissonance all at once in a mass of people who might want to aim their cognitive pain towards powers that should not be, that may or may not be to blame. Well, you don't want to risk that. So better to have it released slowly and let people, as you call it, get comfortable with the idea first, or that it's even a subject first. You know, I saw Spurs Chemo release a clip of a game show where they have it as a question: how would you react if your girlfriend told you that the earth was flat? And the first person asked was like, well, I'd hope that the man just agreed with me. And then they go on to give, you know, any agreement with the subject matter as a bad answer. And eventually no, I'd disagree, and tell them they're an idiot. Cha-ching! Good answer. It's just part of the programming.
Yeah.
But by the same token, while Spurs is pointing out that look how they program us, bad answer equals flat Earth good, good answer equals flat Earth an idiot. Well, yeah, but it's on the game show, softening up the people to the idea, Spurs. Not that you pointed that out in your point, and it isn't your point, it's mine. It's still on the game show. So there's potentially plenty of people watching that game show who've never even heard the words flat Earth, said positive or negative. The fact that it was 2/3 negative, 1/3 positive, with the first reaction being, well, I hope they just agree. It's like, well, that's at least got some balance to the presentation. And now the subject matter is definitely a part of someone's cognition that it wasn't before. Well, that's positive.
Yep. That's awesome.
Shout out to Spurs Gimo. His channel's called Under No Pressure, and also Joey Rocha for giving me the idea to talk about the Streisand effect, which is extremely interesting. Suppression of something that you potentially could have just let lie, and have it have no effect. By suppression, you end up exposing it to more people because they're like, "Oh, what's that being suppressed for?" Go on, whoever it was in Discord. Albraculia. RB 1985. Did you want to add something? Or Redman? I'm just seeing loads of people with that. Go ahead. Go ahead, Albraculia.
Yeah, I don't think it was good. Sorry, if I went. Like I said, I apologize. I don't think I didn't want to say anything.
No, fair enough. I'm glad Flatsoid's come. Let's just wait till he's in. Hey, Flatsoid, I'm glad you've come. We were just talking about people who've turned, and Chocolate's advice was to go and see Jose J.G. Gonzalez to get advice on how you can just take the blue pill after taking the red pill. And I know that you've had some interactions with somebody who's of a similar ilk. Feels they can turn back time, take the blue pill.
Hey.
Go on.
Yeah, hey. STST. Well, I've been calling him out that he wasn't really a flat earther from the beginning. I mean, if you really come to the truth, you're not going to go back to the global lie. It just doesn't make any sense. If you understand what I'm saying. I mean, if you're going to figure out what the truth is, why will you discard the truth and go back to the nonsense that can't be proven?
So you're saying wasn't a flat earther to begin with, has just utilised that position to advantage himself on YouTube, maybe? What's your opinion?
Yeah.
Because obviously you can't divine his thoughts.
Yeah, look, he even knows. I tell him straight that he did it for publicity, for views. I mean, it's easy to just play flat earther. I mean, even if you look at his content from the beginning, his flat earth content was atrocious, was useless. Just, oh, look, I'm looking at the sky. The sun's moving across. Okay, so the earth is flat. Now he's got a whole production and everything going on since he's become a glober, understand? And now he's just bragging about all his views and his subscriptions and everything, and oh, how great Katz is and Simon Dan and stuff the whole time, you know? And just the type of words he spews out, like, you and your pizza planet. You tell me one flat earther that's ever said pizza planet.
I say it in reference to globe earthers who scorn us. So I would say words to the effect of, when do we ever say that a boat would fall off the edge of a pizza planet or pizza pie?
I thought it was Slice Barcane that said that.
Slice Barcane.
Oh,
Slice. Boom boom.
Man.
That's dire, but very good.
Cheesy.
Dad jokes. Right, shout out to Al Junkie. I only take the red pill prescribed by Dr. John D. He's not a medical doctor. Don't take anything that he prescribes you.
Hey, on
Some
top
people
of the
need certain
suppression,
pieces squared away.
Oh my God, that's dire.
Good one.
I was going to say, on top of the suppression, to me, a big factor in this is the response, not just the suppression. Because if this was, I mean, I've said it before. If it was a ball, it would just be a ball. it would be self-evident. We wouldn't need to even talk about it, right? But the fact that these people have decided to step up and become the guardians of their little galaxy and defend their globe model, I think that's almost as big as the suppression as far as how devastating this topic is to the current narrative. Because
I mean, if you
what would force them to do this, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you're honest with yourself, you're definitely not going to turn back to the globe. You can't tell me if you're honest. You're literally going to go back to a conceptual, being conceptual that's unproven, and then just go and spew nonsense about making fun of flat Earth after you were claimed to be a flat earther.
Oh, I would. I could and would if you gave me answers to all the housekeeping questions, which are based on the fundamental premises of the globe claim. So if somebody gave me answers to all those questions, where do we get the R value? Where do we see a physical geometric sphere edge obstruction for boats and buildings? The problem is that none of these things are ever going to be provided. In other words, from my vantage point, looking over my position, I go, well, if someone came along and offered me all those things, which as it stands I see as an impossibility, then I'd believe I was on a globe because I would be on a globe. But we're not. So how are we supposed to provide physical geometric sphere edge like a hill in the way of something in the distance? That's what they need. And we just don't have that. So, I would go back if we were on a globe, because it wouldn't be going back, it would be obviously and observably a globe. It just isn't.
Yeah, that's... I mean, I don't know if you've seen Simon Dan's latest podcast.
I don't think...
They're moaning about the same questions that we have, and then I'm telling them, why you haven't even answered the previous arguments. How do you expect us to make more arguments? It's
right.
It's just their way of running
I
away.
don't think none of us will be flat earthers if they have answers and actual demonstrations of what they claim, right?
Well, we just want to be shown that we're actually on a globe physically, rather than being told, well, Earth curve only exists in the maths. It's like, that's what they're telling us. So you want me to go back on being a globe head, do you? Okay, well, don't tell me that Earth curve only exists in the maths, as Rumpus did. Because that's not going to get me back on a globe. I mean, if you guys want to do what you expect me to do for you, which is they expect me to convince them of a flat Earth, and I don't care. I'm not interested in convincing anybody of anything. I haven't got the time or effort or inclination to do so. But if they want the same in reverse, they want to convince me to be on a ball, then don't tell me Earth curve only exists in the maths. Because then Earth curve only exists in the maths, right? It doesn't exist in physical reality. That's what they're telling me. Yeah, very convincing. That's going to put me back on a ball quick sharp, isn't it? No.
The only thing that's going to get me back on a ball is if they can show me gravity overcoming entropy.
Yeah, prove space is real. All your bloody videos and films and story time, Jack and Ori, that you expect us to believe on TV screens, if you expect us to believe them, don't have it all taking place in Narnia. Don't have it taking place in a reality that can't exist, i.e. sky vacuum, space, outer space. If you're going to have your narrative come from a fake place, don't expect me to suspend disbelief about it. I can't! You're expecting me to believe it as my reality, not suspend disbelief that we can have pressure here with a sky vacuum called outer space, because that's absurd!
Yep, and even space.com apparently is trying to help you guys out. Trying to tell you guys, well, don't appeal to the evidence and arguments. That's not what this is about. This is about trust. Oh, so you guys got to appeal to our trust? Well, it doesn't help our trust in you guys very much if you want to come here and tell us nobody claims that the horizon is the Earth curve. Literally at the same time while presenting horizons as Earth curve. How am I supposed to trust you? Because that just makes you look like a crazy person.
Yeah, who was it that said that?
Right.
Who was it that said about gaining trust? Because that's spoken like a true cult leader. Don't worry about proving our philosophy real. Worry about gaining the next cult follower's trust.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing about it. You see, it's kind of a respect my authority type of thing, where they just say, look, trust that we have the science. The scientists know. It's that kind of an attitude. Trust that it's there. They already know all this. It's that people who are saying it's not a globe, they just don't understand that it is a globe. That's basically what they're saying to people. You know, rather than saying it to us that we don't understand.
The thing that irritates me is we have to school them on their own rhetoric, and then they come and tell us we don't understand.
And what is the synonym for trust?
Can you repeat that? What is the what for trust?
Synonyms?
Believe.
Belief? Is that what you're looking for?
Believe and faith. Believe and faith.
Yeah.
I put one in Skype for you, the page of that article, Nathan. Master B.
But my point being is they're not even saying to us, it's not even that they're saying to us, you don't understand. They're telling other people that we don't understand. And this is what it's like. The science is already there. It's already been proven. It's proven for a long, long time. These people don't understand. But they can't, but at the same time, publicly, they can't call us stupid because we don't prove to be so. So they say, oh, they're not stupid people, but they just don't understand. No, and this is what this is at the present. This is at present how they're trying to push it on the public.
Brian, it's like me telling you you're stupid, but you're not stupid.
I've got your arguing from evidence, specifically a reference to the globe on screen, Chocolate.
Yeah, so this is from that article, How to Debate Flat Earthers, from space.com. And after the entire article of going through what is supposed to be evidence and proof for this magical spinning water ball we're supposed to live on, the last section of this is called Arguing from Evidence, and the author says, however, I don't think this discussion is really about the actual evidence or the scientific process. People who believe that the Earth is flat aren't coming to that conclusion from the same types of observations. They instead believe that we are being misled and lied to, that scientists, including me, want you to believe the Earth is round despite its flatness. Found that very cute. So the question isn't why do people believe in a flat Earth, but rather why do people believe in a conspiracy? And the answer is the same reason it always is: a lack of trust.
Don't you think it's amazing now that the latest argument is they're pushing thermodynamics as a conspiracy?
Yeah. That's pretty funny.
Just descriptions. They're not conspiracy theories. They're just descriptions.
Yeah, but you see, they have to say it's a conspiracy now because if it debunks the globe, they have to try and demean it somehow.
If it debunks their globe, it must be
because they say they, and I use that term with air quotes. They say, "Oh, if we follow the scientific method so rigidly, then the second law of thermodynamics can't be used." It's a fucking law of nature. Get that through your heads. Don't misrepresent my family ever again. Thank you very much. Please, no one say any more. Sorry.
Yeah, well, that we discussed that on Ballbusters. It's because they've convoluted a natural law, a description of something that occurs in nature always, with something scientific. So they call it a scientific law. So that when they then describe something causally, they can attribute the word science to it as though it's in the same bracket. So they say, well, my science for my astrophysicist friend here is as follows, and they list off their description and just so story for something they've observed, potentially a phenomena in the sky, but they give you a causal relationship which they haven't established with science, but they call it science. Well, when it comes to actually attributing a description to something that occurs always, that's not establishing cause. There's no asserted cause of the second law of thermodynamics. It's merely a description of something that occurs in nature. Well, you don't have descriptions being conspiratorial when it's merely something that applies always. You can't violate the second law of thermodynamics. It's just a description of something that is always happening. Entropy increase in this instance. You show me not increase. Now, what is the thing that's not increasing? What, my description? Well, no, because that's a reification of the thing that is being described in nature, as in it actually happens always. That's why it's got so lofty a term, law.
Yeah, there was never a reason to try to prove it because it was so evidently obvious.
Exactly. Occurring always.
Exactly. Just to the public out there, anyone who's listening to this live or at any time after this, can you find anyone in your life who told you, who asked you for trust and asked you, did you trust them, that you ended up being able to actually trust that person? Anyone in my life history who asked me for trust and asked me to trust them, they were the very people you could never trust. Because someone who's looking for your trust is someone who has no intention of keeping it.
Trust me, I'm a con man. Wink, wink.
Yeah, these things, these concepts like trust, love, things that aren't tangible, right? Like, but like physical, but it comes from elsewhere. You can't ask for that. You only find that you do trust someone based on how things led up into that point, and your assessment of how things led up into that point.
Correct.
And you assess whether you trust them or not.
Correct, but what they can get out of people, and I think it was you that described this, Eli, it's the understanding. Well, what does that mean? It means that you are supportive, if you want to use a different word, of the position that is being described to you. You stand under that description. In this instance, you stand under the position asserted that we are on physically, the model, the philosophy. So you stand under that notion. And that's really what's described in this. They're describing how we don't understand. No, we don't. We don't understand how you can have gas pressure without a container. These are the things we don't understand because they're not understandable. We can't stand under the idea of having a sky vacuum or having a non-physical physical horizon that isn't capable of measurement but simultaneously derives an R value to move its physicality. None of these things are capable of being stood under. They're untenable as opposed to understandable, but they want you to understand them anyway. And the people they're fighting against are literally and figuratively, accurately, if you will, described by their description of us not understanding. Well, no. Make us understand how you can have gas pressure without a container, how you can derive an R value from a non-physical horizon. You explain that so it's understandable and I'll understand it. It just isn't.
That's the funny thing. You come to an understanding. You can't be told to understand something. Like, you come to that understanding based on a few logical steps.
Or you can be told and ridiculed if you don't. Well, these are the bad people because they don't understand. Or in many more accurate ways, described as they don't agree. I'd say it's like this, and they don't agree. That's really what it comes down to. And it's not because we're just belligerent, it's because it's not something to be understood. In fact, it's riddled with contradictions. You can't tell us that you don't have, and nobody claims there's a physical geometric sphere edge for a horizon, and simultaneously hold up a picture that says, this is Earth curve. How is that understandable? A contradiction's not understandable. That's the problem. So we're never going to understand if it's complete nonsense.
Yeah, it's like me taking a hammer and hitting you over the head and saying, don't worry, it won't hurt the next time I hit you, and I hit you over the head again, and you're going to keep on believing me. That's exactly how the globers are.
Exactly. Well, I've experienced it hurting. Yeah, but you don't understand. I'm saying it won't next time. Clonk. I experienced it hurting. Yeah, but you don't understand what I'm saying. Yeah, but what you're saying doesn't match reality. Any more to add? With that, I'll say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Programming streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who shared the show, smashed the super chat, commented, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. I've been Nathan Oakley once again. Stay tuned if you're watching on a programming stream, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
What a day. What a lovely, lovely day.
You guys need to be aware that there's a fucking killer premiere going on in my channel in like 1 minute. Make sure you check it out later.
Oh, why didn't you say that in the live show? Oh, that's totally useless because nobody's listening to that.
I know, but you can play it now if you want. It's only about 8 minutes long, 9 minutes long.
I'll watch it after the fact. Don't kill my after show, Anthony.
Anthony, I'll think of it as watching it now, okay?
Yeah, you don't have to watch it now, but you can think about watching it now. Does that mean you watched it?
Guess how many people were watching that show?
Just now.
Do you know how many people were watching? Well. Guess how many people were watching live?
Go on.
By my often lower than the actual number shown on YouTube numbers, it said over 200 people were watching that live show.
Yeah, I think you get far more live watchers than what they actually tell you, you know.
Well, often I've asked, I know that's the case, I've asked. So I've got people who are not me on a different account, on a different computer to check what the number that's stated as the stream is playing live, and then verse that with what I've got on screen, and the number's often lower. So it doesn't matter though. I'm saying what I'd said on my stats was 200 plus people watching. Well, over the period of COVID lockdown, that number dropped significantly, and now it's moving back up. So the number of live viewers is up significantly.
That's good.
I'm very pleased.
Very good, yeah.
Yeah, couldn't be more pleased.
I remember a couple of shows before COVID. We were maybe about 300. Something like that.
Exactly. But then it dropped right down. And some of the shows were getting 100 people watching, or 110, 119 sometimes. You know, that was what the numbers dropped to at their worst. Obviously, at the time, you're like, well, you've got to plod through. That's just the way life goes. And I churned out masses of edited videos, much to the detriment of my health and stress and time with my family and all the rest of it. But you just have to do what you have to do. But I'm delighted to see that, you know, the numbers are now moving back up in the right direction towards where they were at their peak, which was like 320 people watching live at one time, which is just for me. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm just talking about myself. That for me is amazing. So 200 is just excellent. It's well in the right direction.
That's good. If it's going to grow more, it's going to go well.
I get happy when I hear that the numbers are going up, even though it's not my channel. So,
yeah, it's funny, Brian. It's funny, Brian, because they say the flat Earth is dying.
Who? The same clowns in chat that were here 5 years ago, saying that the same thing. Flat Earth is dying. And
yeah, some of them are my longest subscribers and watchers, and you're like, at the end of some of the chat streams, so I'm watching the premiering stream, which I often do, I'll thank them as well. It's like, you know, thanks for watching, because we're adding to the stats as much as anybody, as much as you're here telling us how we're clowns, with absolutely no rebuttal to anything we put in the chat, just occasional gotchas. They all cheer for each other. It's really amusing. So one of them will think they've got a gotcha over you. So one of the clowns in the chat on yesterday's premiering stream was asking me if the DNA model was pseudoscience. I'm like, I'm not making any claims. But at some point, eventually, he claims he's got scientific validity. And I'm like, okay, fine. I even said the word hypothesis. This is the chat troll. I'm like, okay, excellent. What's the hypothesis then? Now that you've made a claim about it, because obviously this is part of your argument to prove we've got an Earth curve in this flat Earth debate chat. It isn't. They just want a little gotcha. It's like, well, okay, no worries. I'll take apart any claim you make, but I don't need DNA as part of my argument for anything. But if you think you've got a little gotcha, because I say, factually accurate, models are pseudoscience, why? Well, because they don't have any independent and dependent variables validated by experiment. Now, there might be instances where you can show me a model that has got experimental backing to it, but I'm yet to be shown one. Now, if you do, good for you. I'll go, okay, well, there's aspects of this model that have got scientific validity, and I'll point to them in their isolated nature and their isolated cause that's been verified by experiment. And I'll cheer. But models are pseudoscience. But thinking you've got some gotcha with some model that's being usefully described for something else, it's not an argument I make, I don't care. It's not proving the Earth's a sphere, though. That's the point. You little gotchas.
I would just like somebody to dig out of the archives in some way that would be able to just give me a scientific hypothesis used to validate their gravity. I mean, if you're claiming it's scientific, it had to have a hypothesis somewhere. But no one can give me this hypothesis.
Because there isn't one. Like Arwin said, if you can't even show what it is, how are you supposed to validate the cause of that effect if you don't even know what the effect is? I don't know. Moving on, next question. Well, what are you observing and how are you going to validate the cause of it? Well, they're not. That's the reality of it. Gravity is just made up. It's a load of nonsense stories.
The guy whose name they put on this shit told you himself he doesn't feign a hypothesis for this nonsense. So what is anybody else going to do?
Yeah, well, that's a slightly different subject. That's Newtonian gravity, but we're talking Einsteinian. But yeah, the old and busted was attributed to somebody who definitely didn't want it attributing to them. So we very rarely use this incorrect title that it has been given, 105 years out of date though it is, which is Newtonian gravity, I hesitate to say, because he didn't want any part of it.
I love that the old and busted has caught on. I'm loving it.
You know, how did they come up with globes in the 1500s? When they're saying, well, look, now we know what it looks like because now we've been into space. It's like, yeah, but what about before then? You still had globes, but like, what's that about?
Because it was always a working philosophy. Well, what does that mean? Working philosophy? Model? Does it mean that it has any bearing on your ground beneath your feet? No, it doesn't. The fact that you could work out, there's many different philosophies beyond the heliocentric one. There's loads of them. The fact that that one's been reified into existence by the Western world is neither in or there. It's just another philosophy.
Yeah, it's like, oh, look, we've ventured into second law of thermodynamics violation, a conceptual medium that has never been proven to exist. And boom, we have a snapshot of the same thing that we've known to exist forever.
Yeah, well, they had as a working philosophy. They say that we've known forever. But no, the fact that they may have had, and this particular part of their historical narrative is probably complete bunk also and made up, but the fact that they have part of their historical narrative with declarations of their philosophy going back through their claimed history doesn't mean that working philosophy was also reified by the arbiters of the philosophy. No. If they were even slightly of any intelligent decency, they would recognise pretty quickly that they don't actually stand on the model. They're merely using the stars and their movements as a way of describing future movements based on predictions from old movements. Well, that doesn't mean that they would suddenly say also, as it's said now, well, therefore we stand on this philosophy. No, I don't think they would. And I don't think that's implied in anywhere in their own narrative either. But they just say it because it's useful. We've known for thousands of years we're on a sphere. No, you may have, according to your history, had a philosophy that the world could be described in this way. But that doesn't mean we're standing on that philosophy, or that they thought that they were either. Shouldn't say standing on the philosophy, really, should I? I should say standing under it.
That's why my latest video, Globe Challenge.
Been out for 2 days now, and I still haven't had one demonstration yet.
What's your challenge?
Sure.
And it's crazy. Oh, sorry.
Just to demonstrate gravity overcoming entropy.
Can't be
Simple.
done.
This is what they claimed, so they will be able to demonstrate it since it's scientifically validated.
Yeah, can't be done.
Triple nothing.
Someone from Discord wanted to add something. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was me.
Oh, go ahead,
I just
Eli.
think it's insane because it's for centuries. It's like, here's our philosophy. Here's this thing that we believe based on et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like you ask them one time, okay, where's the original measure? How has this been measured? You don't understand. Like, I just want to fucking know how it was measured. That's it.
Well, they would have said Al-Biruni till 2020. It said we take a dip angle measurement to the physical horizon sphere edge that blocks boats and buildings, and based on the dip angle measurement and a bit of trig, we can derive an hour on the presupposed basis that the ground beneath me, from the top of the mountain I'm measuring from to the physical sphere edge, has a curved nature. Therefore, the edge I'm measuring is actually a tangent point to the sphere, so I can derive r with it. So they would have said we measured it by way of Al-Biruni's dip angle. And they have said it. Rumpus, I've got plenty of records of him saying exactly that. Well, we got it with the dip angle measurement. On the basis that the horizon's physical. And it's not. That's how they claim to measure it. We just destroyed it 1st Jan 2020 with the Black Swan. Dum dum da dum dum da dum 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 dum.
Anybody in Discord found their geometric horizon yet? Globers? Anybody?
Yeah, any
I
brave
think Rumpus
souls?
has got in his pocket.
Any brave souls want to show us a picture of the horizon from a high altitude and go, oh, there you go, flatties. It's a physical edge I can see from up here.
Yeah. Let's go back to 2015 with that crap. Let's do it.
It's physical, but I'm looking at through a distorted lens that makes it optical. But because I want it to be physical, it has to be optical.
But you couldn't stick a flag in it. Or mark it with an X, label it with a horizon like we do in the maths. You couldn't do that. Unless we need to and get the hour, and then we'll move the position that it's non-physical to a different position with the hour that we didn't measure. Because that makes sense. I understand.
Well, they were eager in January of this year to come here and tell us how wrong the Black Swan was. And now it's December, almost 1 year to the date. And they can't be found.
Yeah, they have to run away.
Well,
They're
or
ruffled
tell us,
some feathers.
or tell us that we're bamboozling them when they deny the very tenets that they need to make the claim that they're on a sphere with an edge blocking boats and buildings. Well, no one claims that. We're told by the Globers.
Well, Tim, that's because they've lost the argument.
I never thought
Indeed.
in January that by December somebody would come in here and say nobody claims the horizon is the curve of the earth. Like, even at that point, I didn't think we'd have a whole year of we don't see the geometric horizon, we've never seen it, you can't see it, don't understand why you expect to see it, only exists in the math. A whole year of this crap, and it ends with nobody claims it's the curve of the earth.
So then, Chocolate, does that give us license? Chocolate, does that give us license to take every time they said Earth curve blocked the bottoms of boats and buildings? Now we can just say we never claimed that. It's optical.
Yes. Every time they've ever stated that something's got in the way of a boat or building at a physical feet and inches or meters value, we can say, no, that was never a claim you were actually making because the horizon's not physical, as declared by many a fundy throughout 2020. For example, AB Science. Nobody claims that the horizon is geometric. Or Planar Walk. Nobody claims we can see Earth curve geometry. Or the Rumpus. The Earth curve only exists in the maths. These aren't very convincing arguments for having physical obstruction as depicted with an X marking a position called horizon and a physical sphere edge. That's not convincing us. In fact, it's going to be converting many to the idea that the philosophy of being on a sphere is thoroughly untenable.
Nathan, can I make a December special with Glover's dumbest quotes of the year?
If it's Tim Osman, it's the best quote of the year.
Go.
But go on. Go on, Flatsoid.
No, I was saying, are you going to make a Christmas special with Glover's dumbest quotes of the year?
I mean, we could, but it's more, to me, it's more pertinent to point out that when they all get excited because we're covering some stupid thing that they've said at any given time, that they're just flavour of the month temporarily because of their own stupidity. So, you know, it's not the case that people who are now what I call a regular part of the show are part of our language because of somebody's specific stupidity. For instance, gas go down, go boom boom is because of a direct quote from Thunderfoot Clown when pouring bouncy balls into a fish tank. Now, while every show isn't being labelled about Thunderfoot and detailed about Thunderfoot, as it was when it was first prevalent during this year, it's just now part of the show. Now, you move on a couple of weeks, couple of months, and you get to Simon Dan in our chat, you know, saying, of course I believe the Earth curve, of course I believe the reference frames rumpus in the chat, you know, while his greasy lawyer's defending the fact that he's denied them. Again, they all get very excited with covering it. Oh, you're obsessed with Thunderfoot. You're obsessed with Simon Dan. It's like, no, and likewise, we're not obsessed with Tim Osman. It's just so very useful to point out that somebody who's been touting the same observation, labelled this is Earth curve of multiple comparative shots of the horizon, would come on the show and say as follows: nobody claims the horizon is Earth curve. End quote. One of 3 slightly varied quotes that all said the same thing. Nobody's claiming the horizon is Earth curvature. Nobody's claiming that the horizon is Earth curve. Like Judas, he said it in 3 different ways on 3 separate occasions, completely unimpeded, whilst holding up a picture that says this is Earth curve, with pictures of the horizon he's denying. Judas, eat your heart out. So Tim Osman, yeah, we're not obsessed with him. He's just a very useful idiot who didn't understand the Black Swan, came us and told us how silly it was, only to, on the same show, deny the existence of a claim even being there for the horizon blocking boats and buildings, like in his picture. Just as stupid as Thunderfoot Clown and Simon Dan, equal to, and now part of our show vernacular. Nobody claims the horizon is Earth curve. Right, Tim? Gas go down, go boom boom, like bouncy balls in a fish tank. Right, Thunderfoot? You and your reference frames are ruined. Right, Dan?
But can I point something out? And correct me if I'm wrong anywhere in here, but they don't use math. They don't use the math in their model to say that nobody claims that we don't see a geometric Earth curve. They actually use perspective and vagueness, because if they were using some kind of R value and then wrapping light rays around that curve, giving it a slightly bigger radius, i.e. refraction, then they only have 6.6 times the amount, not 10 times the amount that we see in the Black Swan.
Be careful. No. And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
The reason no is because to make that extrapolation, you need R. So to say, even if they could, which they very easily could, say no, refraction is 23/7R, whatever fraction they need. You know, they can make it as little as they like or as much as they like. They can go in either direction just by changing the value. But the value's based on R. So if they're going to move the position of a physical obstruction to a refracted non-physical location with a value for refraction that uses R, they're going to need R. Now, this is called Arwin's paradox. How do you move the physical geometric sphere edge horizon with an R value if you require a physical geometric sphere edge horizon to get the R to move it to a position that's not physical. If it's not physical, it can't be measured to give you the R. It's a paradox. So you can't get R to then make your extrapolation to say, well, you can't say that it's only 5% beyond 7/6 R. It's actually 10 times as far. How are you going to move the value? Well, they just changed the value. But they still need R, and they can't get it without the physicality. And because they're moving it, this is what Huey recognised when he first developed the argument. As soon as they say refraction, they're saying the horizon's non-physical, right? So they can't get R. So originally, QE was like, no, you don't need to present a different black swan that's slightly less blurry. I want them to say refraction, because that leads to Arwin's paradox. As soon as they say the horizon's refracted, oh, so not a physical sphere edge then? Not capable of giving you feet and inches value as it blocks stuff with its physicality then? So you're moving it to a non-physical location, and now you're doing it with R. And how'd you get R? With a physical horizon you're telling us isn't physical. Yeah, that's a problem, isn't it? Leaves the model untenable. And when they try and justify it as you've done, by saying, well, we've got a much higher rate of refraction that day, it's very bendy crane refraction, so very non-physical horizon then, where are you getting R?
But see, while I agree with you there, I'm only talking about the source that I'm reading the 6.6 from with Andrew Thomas Young. So I agree with you, but I'm saying they don't even have the math to, like, what they're doing to go beyond that has nothing to do with any math whatsoever, is my point.
Well, it is, because Andrew Thomas Young tries to make it so by drawing a line of sight to a position that we cannot see. So in his description, he says, we've got a line of sight to the apparent horizon. And he's describing that as a geometric position that you can't see. So in his doublespeak, he's got a line of sight to something you cannot see, and that's the physical horizon, which we don't have. The horizon isn't physical. So even in Andrew Thomas Young's description, it falls on its ass in his little sentence that says, now we will draw a line of sight to the geometric horizon. Well, you can't draw a line of sight because you need sight of it, and you haven't got it. So that's where his explanation also falls to pieces, when he tries to insert an R value that's been derived from a physical horizon.
You're right.
Just to add to that, with the ridiculousness of, just to add to the ridiculousness of 7/6 standard refraction, also called terrestrial refraction, if that was the case, we would have daylight all the time, because the sun's light would be constantly being refracted around the sphere, and the sun would constantly be loomed up, because of what they call looming, up above the horizon. So, you know, if there was on a night where there was a full moon, you'd have the sun out all night, sunlight all night, and you'd have a full moon. No one would be able to drive.
They do claim that. No, that is their explanation for the Seleninian. That is exactly what they claim. It's all refracted. That's correct. Not laughable, and they should be saying that. They do say that, Brian. You laugh. Hold on. I just don't want the gravitas of this explanation to be lost before I do my outro. That was pointed out to me by Chris before we parted company, and I was like asking him about the various different models and how they worked, comparing flat with globe. And at some stage, I actually stumbled across that fact. Well, the light rays are all moving around in a curved nature, right? Well, therefore, nothing is where it's supposed to be, ever, in their model. And Chris said, yeah, it's all refracted. Nothing is where it's supposed to be. Facts. All of the light's being bent, right? Always? So nothing's where it's supposed to be on a globe model? Just wrap your head around that while I say my outro and thank yous. So a massive, huge, enormous thank you to both Google and Discord panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!